Hello there, and welcome. Well, we're now really getting down to the nitty-gritty of discussions I wish I could have with my brother John. The story I'm about to tell you, I only know partially, and it's pieced together from things that he told me while he was going through it. Although he didn't tell me everything, because I was also going through some difficult things, although not nearly as difficult as he was. And the articles that were published at the time. And so some of this is imaginative. I am trying to piece together what actually happened, and it would be such an amazing thing if John were alive and we had a chance to talk about this incident, because I'll be honest with you, I think everybody needs to know about things like this happening. Because even though this is said in a small town, in a small school, it's illustrative of things that happen throughout the world at different times. And it can be, I suspect it can be instructive. So, that's the caveat I'm going to set up here at the beginning. Some of this is based on his accounts. Some of this is based on newspaper articles. And some of this is based on what I imagined happened behind the scenes, so that I can give you as close to a complete portrait of what happened as possible. John was teaching in a small town, and I'm not going to talk about the town name today, but if you watch the channel, you'll know the town name. And I'm not going to mention the names of the other people involved, just John, because this is a really awful situation that people had to live through, and the situation I'm describing is not to render revenge on the people who were unkind to John, or actually, criminal. It is to give those who might hear it some sort of reassurance about the ability for occasionally good can triumph. Good being John, of course. So, it begins in 1987, before the school year starts. A new superintendent is hired by a relatively new school board in this small town. The hiring is not made public. They don't offer any kind of press release or anything like that when they hire this new superintendent, which is a little bit unusual, but this is back in 87. People were not carrying around their cell phones. That wasn't happening. Even if you had a cell phone, which a lot of people did not, it didn't do all the things that our cell phones do, which, basically they record our entire lives, so there's that. But he was operating in a 20th century mode, my brother John, and this new superintendent showed up, and John wasn't a member of the teachers union at that time. He was teaching for over 10 years and was not a member of the teachers union. I never asked why. Never. Now, our dad was a member of the teachers union, and Mom has told me stories about when he did some political activism as a member of the teachers union. But I'm not going to go into that now, but that's why I was ready to join immediately. The day I was hired, I joined the teachers union. I think it's an important thing. In those days, though, see, a lot of people say the teachers union has a problem or they're too powerful. The teachers union is not nearly as powerful as it should be. When my dad and his working group were members, that thing had teeth. But it was because most of them were World War II vets, and they were double tough. That's why it's great to have vets in a union, they've been trained that they're tough. They understand mental and physical toughness. They've gone through the training for it. So, yeah, John wasn't even a member of the union, and he was assiduously overtly neutral on religion and politics as a teacher in the school. He kept his cards very close to his vest, as have I as a teacher professionally. If a student asked me directly, do you go to X church? I had to answer that truthfully. If they asked me about my politics, I'd say I don't think I should discuss that with you. So my students never were sure what my political bent was, which was fine. That wasn't what I was there to train them about. And John felt pretty much the same way. In fact, he felt even more neutral politically because he had opinions that aligned with a lot of different political perspectives, not just one or the other side. So, So he'd never been politically active in the town, or the state for that matter, but the town itself was pretty important politically. There were a number of very powerful political families in the town as far as the state government was concerned. There were state political figures who came from that town, and that town swayed political perspective in that region. So politics was no joke in that region. And for that reason, things went a little haywire. And this is part of why I think this story is relevant now. Whenever politics get really polarized and adversarial, one of the things that gets dragged in is schools. Public schools. Never private schools. Public schools get dragged in because they're supported by the state. And people use the school as a football. They all will say it's important, but almost none of them have any experience working in a school, and they will use it as an opportunity to just try to bully other people. So, the school board that had gotten elected and hired this superintendent was of one political side. And the school board made it known to the new superintendent that they wanted to get rid of the politically active opposition among the teachers. Now, not all teachers were neutral like John. Some of the teachers had family members which were political people, spouses and relatives which were political people, and so they supported their political ambitions. They were in the minority in that town, but they were effective and active, and the board saw them as counter the board's desires. So they let this guy know that they wanted those people axed. They wanted the school cleansed of the opposition. Sound familiar? Well, you're not allowed to do that. So he got to work immediately at the beginning of '87 and sent letters to teachers he intended to purge from the district. And one of these teachers was friends with John. So she went to him with the letter and said, I don't understand what's going on right now, but somebody told me, that's how it always goes in school gossip, somebody told me that this guy has targeted me because I'm so-and-so's wife and I've worked on his campaign. And John's like, well, see, John's a history teacher. He says, well, that's not legal. He can't do that. And she said, yeah, but I think he is. And John said, well, let me look into it and see what's going on. Now, John's not a union member, right? At this point, he's not a union member. And it sounds crazy to him that somebody would do that because it's not legal, first of all. And second of all, it's stupid. That never works out well, okay? So he goes to the superintendent in a private sort of setting and says, I'm being told that you're planning to purge so-and-so, or to fire so-and-so. Not because of her politics, right? That's not true. And rather than saying, oh no, that's not true, the superintendent got mad and he said to John, you need to back off, buddy. This is none of your business. Or you may be next. Now, a lot of people think that if someone's a good hang, a fun person, a charmer, funny, that they're soft. But you see, John, that made him see red. Not only did the guy not deny that that's what was going on, he threatened John in order to shut him up. That right there sealed it. From there on out, there was going to be a war. The guy started it, and it was now on. So John went back to this teacher and he said, yeah, you know what, I'm afraid that's what's happening. Why don't you figure out who else he's targeting? See if you can figure it out. Well, of course, she knew already. She'd already been doing the work to figure out what was happening. And she went through the list of who was being targeted, and it showed that each person that had been targeted was somebody that was in opposition to the board's political point of view, and none of the teachers that had been active that were for the point of view were being purged. So it was just opposition. That's all they were going for. So John said, okay, I think we should have a casual gathering of these people at my house where I'm staying. He didn't own a house in town. He was staying in a big house. And he said, we'll just go there and talk it out this weekend and see what we think should happen. And of course, this other teacher who was a member of the union said, well, why don't we invite all the union members? Why don't we just make it a union meeting? And it'll be, you know, a casual union meeting. But that way we can all discuss it and see what we can come up with. And he said, okay, we'll do that. So that weekend, they all got together, and after some pretty extensive discussion, John was made president of the union. He joined and was president in a day, president of the local chapter. I was already a member. I didn't even have an office where I was, but he joined as president. So, yeah. Now, why? Why were they so interested in getting John involved? Well, it's a pretty simple answer that this superintendent clearly didn't understand. John, after 10 years in that community, he was connected to both political sides. Because he was neutral, and because he studiously avoided appearing other than that, he was friends with the top movers and shakers on both sides. He was an admired teacher, beloved even. So, as a brief press release, they gave the newspaper a brief press release announcing that John had been elected president of the teachers union locally. And they had an attorney in Albuquerque who advised them to draft a letter to the superintendent from all of the people that the superintendent had already tagged for elimination, telling them that no principal or superintendent should try to meet with these teachers unless John was available to be present for the meeting. So they couldn't arrange the meetings during the school day or anything like that. They had to arrange it so that John could be present because he was going to be their representative. Because there wasn't an attorney in town who could do it. It was that small a town. It had to be John. So, well, when the news came out, woo boy, the superintendent got mad because, you know, he told John to back off, and John did the opposite of backing off. He charged in. And then, of course, John had to attend all the school board meetings. That's one of the responsibilities of the president of the teachers union, is to attend all school board meetings. So the next school board meeting, John was sitting right up front, ready to take notes. He was prepared to deal with what was coming. And he thought. And they did a little bit of early business, and then they went into closed session. So I don't know how many meetings were like that, but it must have been more than one. Because after one of these little performative meetings, and you know, they have them, in some districts it's once a month, some districts they'll do 2 a month. Almost none of them do it once a week, but once a month is pretty common. So it was on one of these, quick opening part and then closed session meetings that John had stayed out in the parking lot talking with some teachers about how things were going and what was happening and whether or not these firings would move forward, because the implication from the superintendent was they would move forward regardless of what the union did. And he had decided that he was going to fire John. And part of what was happening in the closed door sessions was he was trying to convince the board members he just has to fire John. He has to fire John. Doesn't matter if you like him, he has to go. He's an impediment. But of course, it was also this axe that this bully superintendent wanted to grind against John. He wanted to get rid of him. And so it just so happened that after that meeting, he came out and John was still there talking with some teachers. And he was so furious at John, he threatened to physically fight him. See, that's not legal. Your boss can't offer you an ass whooping. That's just the way it is. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter if you're in a difficult business like police work, or a pleasant business like teaching, or sales. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Your boss is not allowed to offer you an ass whooping. Period. Okay? Even the military forbids an ass whooping. I mean, sometimes it happens, but it's not allowed. My grandpa used to say they can do a lot of things to you, but they can't slap your face. It's disrespectful. So John actually got threatened by this man. Okay? They didn't have an actual physical fight, but it came close. He resisted the urge to go ahead and do it. Because, of course, that's what this guy wanted. He wanted a reason to fire John, and if he could egg John into a physical fight, that would have been it. So John was now pretty nervous. So when he called the attorney in Albuquerque and described what happened, the attorney was like, okay, this has gone way too far. First of all, you need me there. And second of all, we got to do a background check on this guy. So background checks were not as fast then. Now you can do a really fast background check, but it was harder for lawyers to do a thorough background check. So they were doing a background check on this superintendent because the lawyer, he had an inkling that any guy in that position that pulled this has a record. That there's somewhere in his background that's problematic. And so when he looked it up, he discovered a number of things. For instance, the guy wasn't licensed to be an administrator in this state. The guy had a spotty reputation at best. He had been chased off by more than one school district. And he had some sort of thin attachment to one of the school board members. Like there was another way that he was attached to one of the school board members. Which meant that that school board member knew. Which meant all the school board members knew. So, when they found that out, it was time. So he had told John, I'm going to get you first. You're going first. The firing letters went out at the end of the year and fired those teachers that they had selected to purge. But they couldn't fire John. And the statewide rep sued, and the school district had to eliminate the superintendent. The school board could not keep him. He had to go. So before the end of the year, he